Mr. Kamrani, thank you so much for your time. Let's talk about the U.S. strategy, or what U.S. think about Iran and what's happening in Iran. And especially yesterday, the U.S. ambassador at the United Nations addressed the Iranian government saying we are watching what you do. Is that a threat?
Well, that is certainly an expression of a stronger U.S. Policy, a more powerful approach towards the Iranian regime. It is they are clearly trying to indicate a departure from President Obama's policy that kind of had a blind eye on what the Iranian regime was doing, be it the 2009 violent crackdown on protests, or be it the Iranian meddling in the affairs of other countries like Lebanon, Syria, Yemen. So President Trump has clearly indicated that they are watching, and Representative Haley, UN Representative Haley, indicated the same thing. So they are clearly trying to make it very obvious that Iran should be ready for a total different approach, and the U.S. is ready to support the Iranian people in their quest for a free society, for more political and social freedoms.
What does Haley or Nikki Haley means when she said Iran is on the note?
Unnoticed. Well, that is there is no precise explanation of that. That is the same thing that General Flynn said on Iran back when he was the advisor, national security advisor to President Trump during his short term. In one of his press briefings, he said that Iran is on notice. Now, what that means, we don't know clearly what they are going to do if Iran shows more aggression. We are not sure. But what we can kind of guess is that there might be some form of action, be it support for those protesters, or be it more sanction, or anything. There is something that they will they have planned, that they are ready to do once Iran crosses the line. So that is my take from putting Iran on notice.
That makes me wondering, or ask the question: what's the best strategy that the United States may adopt in dealing with Iran's protesters?
Well, the best strategy is support. First of all, we have to support. We have to find the needs of those people on the ground, to see what they need to succeed, and then support them. And at the same time, we have to limit the regime's power and tools to crack down on those protesters. We have to impose sanctions on companies who sell the Iranian regime technologies that can basically, be a parasite and limit the internet waves in Iran, or the Voice of America's wave, because Iran has now tools that they try to limit on what information people can access within the country. They can limit the internet. They can limit and basically harm radio waves and TV waves. So anyone who sells those kind of tools and technology to Iran, like Germany has been selling some of those tools, they have to impose sanctions on them. Those countries who sell tools that they can use to crack down on protesters, anti-riot tools, and anything of that nature. And further, U.S. can impose sanctions on Iranian national TV broadcasting company, IRIB, limit what kind of technology they can have access to, limit their access to satellites, limit their access to anything outside of Iranian borders. So the more we limit them, the more room it will be for Iranian people to express themselves. And also, providing a big demand right now is internet, because the government has limited the internet. Several sites have been censored, and Iranian people cannot have access to these apps that they used to use to communicate with one another, to organize these protests. So that is important.
President Rouhani has called for the lifting of bans on the social media. Is it a part of that? the pressure that the international community is putting on Iran, on the Iranian government?
Well, President Rouhani is, what he's saying is part of that, the good cop, bad cop game. President Rouhani's secretary of information and technology, Azari Jahrumi, was the guy who actually, declared that we are going to impose those sanctions, impose those limitations, and they censored two famous major apps, Telegram and Instagram, because people were using that. Telegram, that's the biggest, tool of communication tool in Iran right now, and so it was a member of Rouhani's cabinet who did that, and also the Iran Supreme Security Council is consisted of Rouhani, of a few other guys that he has appointed. And Rouhani, let us not forget, President Rouhani himself is the longest serving member of the Supreme National Security Council of Iran. So he's not a newbie, he's not a guy who does not know how things work. So he has to make those kind of statements to basically try to keep his base. But people are past that. They know his true colors now.
There are reports inside Iran, and officials are saying that the leading figures of the protests are have been arrested and they will face harsh punishment. So are we going to see the end of the protests because of the security reaction to them?
I highly doubt it. First of all, them saying that we have arrested the leader of these protesters, that is a lie. I mean, there is no basis for that, because there were no leaders for these protesters. One unique thing about these protests were that there was no leader. Like in 2009, there were leaders, Mousavi, Karoubi, there were a couple of famous leaders. These ones, they have no leaders. I mean, there are a couple of guys from outside of Iran, in US, and have been encouraging and stuff. But the majority of people have been taken on the streets. They are mad about the way that the economy is going, has been going, the way that the society, institutions have been collapsing, the way that they face more limitations on the way that they used to conduct their lives. Marrying is much harder. Unemployment is very high. So there has not been particular leaders that they can arrest and say, it is finished now. So we are going to see these continue. Now they might be able to slow them down a bit, but they will continue nonetheless, because these are demands that the regime is incapable of meeting.
Not having leaders, is that a good thing or bad thing? Is that the advantage of the government or not?
Well, both. An advantage is that the government cannot arrest them. And like in 2009, arrest them, put them in house arrest, and then everything kind of slowed down. So that's a good thing. Another good point is that usually leaders within Iran have been from the reformist space, what they call reformists. And at the end, they have usually sold out people. Like Khatami was known as a leader. Rouhani himself was known as a leader. But we saw that they sold people out. They did not stand with the people. But the disadvantage is organizing. So we have seen these protests in over 79 different cities, towns and villages, but there has not been much organizing. So they are not very organized. So that is a disadvantage. So we can see it from both perspectives.
And they are slowing down too, recently.
Well, they have been slowing down, but they will not die. But the thing is, they are continuing. That is the important point here. That they keep going. Let us remember that the government is cracking down on these protesters very harshly. They have shot many dozens of people. They have used live rounds. They have used AK-47s, military-grade weapons, to shoot at protesters, and also we have seen a betray. The reformists, what they used to call reformists, have betrayed these people. So the protests will continue. They might kind of slow down right now, but they will pick up again. But what we can be pretty confident about is that they will continue.
The beginning of the protest until now, we've seen the slogans talking about economy, unemployment, the price of the food, and they as people of Iranian people asking for the better life in terms of economy. My question is will be this: does the government has the control on its economy, so it can make some reforms, some changes, then will meet with the demands of the people, and or it has no control on its economy?
No, it has control, but they have stretched, the Iranian resources so much that there has been so little left to spend on the people. For example, they try to blame everything on U.S. sanctions. At the same time, they are spending billions of dollars in Syria, in Yemen, in Gaza, in Lebanon, in Iraq. So the Iranian people that has been actually part of the chants in the streets that let go of Syria, think of us. People are saying that the resources are there. Iran is not a poor country. Iran is a very resourceful country. It has great oil reservoirs, and there are many other resources available to the country that are not available to other countries in the region. For example, Saudi Arabia only has oil, nothing else. You cannot grow anything. Iran, it has agriculture. It has oil, gas, so many other resources, tourism. But the government has been making it hard to cultivate these resources. One, and number two, much of these resources have been spent to advance the governments, the regimes, ideological goals that trying to become the center of the Islamic world, trying to create this the Shia arc from Iran, in Lebanon, Syria, and the Iranian people are saying that there has been no gain for us for the past 40 years. The government has spent our resources on these countries, and right now we are the least liked country in the Middle East. People like Saudi Arabia more than us. Everyone hates Iran, and also we are poor. Economy is doing badly, or institutions are collapsing.
So the bad economy is a result of the price of the oil. Does everyone agreed on that?
Yes, to a certain extent. To a certain extent, economies go up and down. That's a normal thing around the world. In U.S. that happens too. In Germany that happens too. In Saudi Arabia that happens too. But you don't see these kind of protests happening in other countries in the Gulf. They are also dependent on oil, but you don't see the same kind of scenario, the same kind of protests going on there, because they spend their money on their people. But that Iran is not. Iran is not managing only Iran. Iran is also the purse for Syria right now, because Syria is under sanctions. Syria has to get rebuilt again. Syria needs money to kill its own citizens, and who's funding that? I mean, we know that there have been much study, much research going on. We know for a fact that Iran has been, handing out millions of barrels of oil to Syria, of course for free. We know that Iran has been giving billions of dollars to Syria, in terms of credit and other terms, sending fighters. So it has been spending a lot of money on those countries, and that is taking money out of the pocket of average Iranians.
The point that you are making is not new. It's been years and years, and we don't see the international community acting to stop that.
Well, because the international community, when we talk about international community, we are talking about United Nations, right? And within the United Nations, the body that can take actions, military actions or very decisive major actions, is the Security Council. And within the Security Council, there are permanent members such as the U.S., China, Russia. And Russia has been an ally of Bashar al-Assad, or at least a partner of Assad and Iran. So it is not possible to pass a major resolution in the Security Council that would be...
That stop Iran from funding the terrorist groups. Let's be more clear, in Lebanon, in Syria, or in other places.
Yes, because Russia wouldn't let that
Yemen.
go through.
So that's because of the United Nations can do nothing because of the...
Well, Russia can veto that. And because Russia wants Iran in Syria, because Iran is helping Russia, they have a same goal. And if they try to pass a resolution through the Security Council, Russia will veto that. They have the veto power.
What about, I would say, individual countries or players in the region or internationally that do something stop Iran of funding of these terrorist groups?
Well, for the past 8 years, there have been not much happening because President Obama was trying to just get the nuclear deal. So he was basically giving Iran a pass on its activities in the region. But right now we are seeing a change because Iran's activities have been really concerning to Saudi Arabia and to United Arab Emirates. So they are very concerned about Iran's activities in the region. So President Trump is, and that was the significance of his first foreign visit that he went to Saudi Arabia to emphasize that the U.S. is committed to this partnership with Saudi Arabia. So that's the shift we are seeing right now. The U.S. is trying to do more to limit what Iran doing in the region. But for the past 8 years, not much has been done because President Obama was, very focused on getting the nuclear deal done. That's why he gave a pass on Iran when he cracked down on his protesters in 2009. That's why it gave a pass to Iran when Iran went into Syria, Lebanon, and other countries.
And you think that President Trump will be more serious about Iran?
Yes, we are already seeing that. He is going to be serious.
What we seen? What?
He has
any action toward Iran.
Well, he has already imposed additional sanctions. We have been he sanctioned more Iranian companies and industrial companies who have been associated with the IRGC, more individual entities who have been associated with the IRGC. And even the verbal support, his tweets. We have the UN. We have Nikki Haley, U.S. Representative at the UN, bringing that up, in the UN, bringing that to Security Council. This is support. I mean, this is encouraging to Iranian people.
But you suggest that United Nations can do nothing.
Yes, well, as far as resolution goes, it will be hard. I didn't say they cannot do nothing. I said as far as passing a strong resolution that can have, very powerful result quickly, that will be difficult because Russia has veto power. For example, nothing can be passed through to create a coalition to go into Syria. Russia will veto that, as far as that goes. But still bringing to UN, UN Security Council the fact that Iran is cracking down on its protesters and having Iran come and being held accountable on an international tribunal, that is still a major deal. That is very encouraging to Iranian people. So that is a shift from President Obama's policy. That is a stronger approach by President Trump. So the tone is itself, a change, a shift.
Mr. Kamrani, what do you think of the Iranian leadership or Iran leaders claim that there is the foreign countries, specifically United States and Saudi Arabia, behind the protests?
Well, this has been happening in over 79 different towns and villages. People are, devastated. People are hungry. Institutions are collapsing. People have hard time, feeding their children. They have hard time, affording their daughters and sons to get married. So these are very difficult time for the people. And the Iranian leader comes out, and that it has been the case for the past 40 years. Anytime there is public comes out and are angry about something, they say it was the Mossad, it was Israel, it was CIA, it was Saudi Arabia. Now, first of all, if it was really Saudi Arabia who managed to have such popular uprising in Iran, well, good for Saudi Arabia, because they have very strong intelligence services that they're capable of doing that, and that should be put Iranian intelligence services to a shame. But that is not the case. Saudi Arabia is not, even if they wanted to, is not capable of managing such a thing in Iran. These people are, in towns. These are the forgotten people of Iran.
And they need the help from outside or not? Do they need help from outside?
Well, anyone at any time can use help. Yes, but
what kind of help? What type of help?
Well, there are different kind of help. One kind of help is just bringing it to international attention. The media talking about it, that is happening right there. That is a help. President Trump tweeting about that, millions of people seeing that. That is a help, because the government then cannot go on the street, and I mean they're still going to shoot people, but not as easily, because it's going to be harder for them because everyone is watching. So that is one kind of help. Other kind of help would be providing, for example, internet. That has been talked about in the U.S. Helping, with tech companies inside the U.S. Try to make it easier for Iranian people to have access to certain apps and websites. So that would be a help, so people can communicate easier with one another. So these are all different ways that the international community, or the U.S. in particular, can help them.
You have a background, I would say, Iranian roots. So, and a young, I would say, expert here based in DC, watching what happened in Iran and around Iran and internationally. Can I ask you, what's your vision? What do you see? How do you see Iranian picture? Or give me the Iranian picture of Iran after 2 months or 3 months.
Well, that would be very hard to say, because these protests were unexpected. So it was, it took many people by surprise. So it's very hard to imagine what will happen in 2 months or a year from now. But what we know, what we can guess, is that the situation, as far as the economy goes, it will be worse than today, because now the government will start to kind of appease the people, to kind of calm them down. Will start to hand out money, hand out subsidies and stuff, and hand out the money that it does not have, because it already had spent the money in Syria, so it doesn't have it. So it will spend more resources that doesn't have. So it will, the economy will worsen, will get worse, because then they will run out of money and they will face more problems. So the situation will get worse. But the important thing is that these past few days have changed the Iranian, the Iranian people's, perspective, and they have shifted everything. Everything for the past 40 years, you can put it on one side, and the past week or so, you can put it on the other side, because right now people are past the reformist hardliner game. They are past that. They are not looking to reform the system anymore. They have called for a regime change, and that is different. In 2009, they wanted a different president. Within the regime, they didn't want a regime change. Within the regime, they wanted to have Mousavi instead of Ahmadinejad. That was what they were saying. They asked, "Where is my vote?" That was their slogan. Today, they're asking for the monarchy to come back. They're asking for the Shah to come back. They're asking for a regime change. They're asking for, they're chanting death to Khamenei. So it is a complete change. They are disappointed with the reformists. So anything from now on, any public uprising will be aimed at the heart of the regime, at the core of the regime. And we will see what happens over the next 2 months, a year. But whatever happens, if anything big happens, it will aim the regime. It will not be a game within the system anymore.
What about the opposition groups, opposition political parties?
Well, there have been two main opposition groups involved. One has been, Reza Pahlavi, the crown prince of Iran, the son of the late Shah of Iran. He remains a popular figure within Iran. People like him. In fact, they have been chanting his name during some of the protests, saying that, blaming the situation that they're in on the Islamic Revolution, saying that maybe if we had not had this Islamic Revolution, our situation wouldn't be this bad. So they're blaming that on the revolution, and saying, asking the crown prince to return to Iran and take over the government, establish a government. So and that he has been doing lots of interviews for the past week or so. And the other thing is an Iranian game show host who now lives in California. He started this group called Restart. It is an organization, not an official organization, but an opposition group within Iran. And he has gained some followers. And what he has done is that he has encouraged his followers to go and burn down IRGC Basij bases. So that is a unique thing. That's for the first time. These bases used to be very scary to the people. No one would dare just go mess with them. But right now, for the past 6 months or so, we have seen this guy Mohammad Hosseini, tell his followers, go down and burn these IRGC bases. These bases used to be a place where the government would arrest people, go beat them up if they protest against the regime. Now these people go out in the middle of the night and burn down the base. That has been really getting people, brave them up.
What about the armed opposition groups?
Well, they're not
Kurdish political parties, other parts that they have armed and they fight in the regime.
Yes, I think I read somewhere that the Kurdish, one of the Kurdish groups had given an ultimatum to the government that if you come here, try to crack down on our people, we will see a resistance. The Kurdistan has been also a very big headache to the regime, because they cannot easily, the way that in Tehran they go and kick people in the face on the street. They cannot do it the same way in Kurdistan, because there will be consequences to that, and because people are armed and they can take actions. So that will be a challenge to the regime. But the problem here is that whereas when there is a protest in Isfahan, the government can just come and counter them as protesters. If there's anything in Kurdistan, the government will quickly come out and paint it as these people are trying to become independent. They are terrorists or whatnot. So that is the challenge. But as protests grow in Iran in all cities, at the same time, that will be a very good situation for Kurdistan to rise and join the people, because then it will be very hard for the government to blame that on these independent movements or terrorist organizations. But that is certainly a very strong base, and that has been a big headache to the regime.
Mr. Kamrani, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dakhil.